two stories to share with you in this latest room temperature jam. A very famous venture capitalist who has invested successfully in the likes of Uber and Tumblr, just to name a couple, has stated publicly that XRP is obviously going to zero, and of course, it is also a security. Now, this is nonsense, but this guy has a massive following. So, given the massive following he has, there's a 100% chance that I'm going to use my platform to push back, even though he's got more than 4 times, closer to 5 times as many people following him as I do. And it's on Twitter, but still, that's a lot of people. You're talking about 720,000 followers. And also, very enjoyably, I came across a comment from Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse, and he just slammed this venture capitalist for saying the nonsense that he was saying specifically about XRP. And it's one of the most forward comments that I've ever seen from Brad Garlinghouse, just pushing back against a crap idea. And it was just a pleasure to read. So I'm going to share that. And also, you know what's really cool that I don't think you would have seen as much of a little over 2 years ago after the SEC v. Ripple lawsuit was filed, is you've got some very notable names in the world of crypto that pushed back against this guy. Now, that was a true delight to see, because I didn't see as much of this back in 2020, but I think we're at a point where leaders in the crypto space understand, everything's under attack. And if things don't go well for Ripple and don't go well for XRP holders, everything is effed, right? That's pretty much it. So I'm going to share with you the specifics on that. And then there's this story, which just made me laugh. Here's the headline from the Crypto Basic. Ripple CTO calls XLM founder a, quote, crazy fool holding a live grenade, end quote. And it's funny for reasons that you wouldn't guess. If you don't know that, if you go into this not knowing this story, it's hilarious for reasons that you probably you would not guess. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, so here is Jason Calacanis. I don't know if I'm enunciating that correctly, but that's his name, Jason Calacanis. This is the guy who said the nonsense about XRP. This is his Twitter profile. As it turns out, he follows me and I follow him on Twitter. I don't really know who he is. The name sounds familiar only because I see him show up in my feed from time to time. I actually didn't recognize this and didn't know that he was following me either. So I just thought I'd mention that because it's on your screen. But beyond that, I'm not really well versed with the stuff this guy has done or said. I do a little bit of catching up to speed today. So that picture either is not him, or it's him from probably 30 to 35 years ago, because this is him actually. I Googled, and here's a bunch of pictures, including this big one on the right. That's who the guy actually is. So I don't know if it's just a really old picture of him, or just some random pic for a reason that I do not understand. Either way, he's been saying nonsense and crap about XRP from some time, and it does make you wonder if he's one of these people that is just not being intellectually honest. Is it just a bias that is making him say things that to an unbiased person would come across clearly as untrue? I don't know what it is. Just to make the point, here's a headline. This one actually dates back to January 31st of 2021. So you're talking about just over a month after the SEC v. Ripple lawsuit dropped. Here's a headline from you today. Early Uber backer calls XRP a disaster that is clearly going to zero. Famed Silicon Valley investor Jason Calacanis has lambasted XRP, the 4th largest cryptocurrency, in his recent tweet, calling it a disaster. Calacanis, who made a fortune with his early bets on ride-hailing giant Uber, stock trading app Robinhood, and other prominent companies, maintains that the controversial token is clearly going to zero unless some kind of miracle happens. And here's the actual tweet in question, and it was tweeted out January 30th, 2021. He retweeted somebody named Mark Jeffrey, who wrote, he meant XRP, but this guy wrote, Ripple's up 60% over 7 days and back up to a $20 billion market cap again, question mark? I assume this is because they filed their response to the SEC charges and the web reacted favorably, question mark, which is why my voice goes up like this. And this is where Jason Calacanis retweeted that. And this is the guy that's been saying all the nonsense with the 720,000 followers, which is why I got to push back here. He wrote the following. Things are out of control. Imagine a shady company gets walloped with an SEC lawsuit, which carries with it risk of ruin, and their crypto coin goes up 60%? What are you people thinking? XRP is a disaster, is clearly going to zero, pending some miracle. So think about this. Clearly, strong buy. I don't know why. I don't know why he's got the bias. It's hard for me to believe that an unbiased person would think things like this. There were no fraud charges against Ripple. What do you mean shady company? Even the SEC didn't have anything shady against them. They're talking about Section 5 securities violations. Nothing criminal. There's nothing criminal here whatsoever. And you're talking about the, carries with it risk of ruin? You're talking about XRP, a decentralized cryptocurrency with all sorts of developers building on top of the ledger the world over. And you're saying if Ripple goes away, that XRP ceases to exist? Do you actually think that? And you can't understand why markets are behaving in a way that they are just ever since then even? It's just kind of weird to think. So just kind of setting the table for how ridiculous all of this is. So now let's get to today's comments. Here you can see, and this was a story I covered, a lot of people were talking about yesterday, but I was one of the people that covered it. Yesterday, Brad Garlinghouse announced that Ripple expects to end up paying a total of $200 million in expenses as a result of the SEC v. Ripple lawsuit by the time this is all said and done. $200 million. It's absolutely insane. And here you have Jason Calacanis sharing this with his 720,000 followers, sharing this headline titled, "Ripple will have spent $200 million fighting SEC lawsuit," CEO says. And here's what Jason had to say. He wrote, "XRP is obviously a security. It would have cost little for the Ripple team to have registered it as a security and played by the rules like everyone else in the industry does all day long." So this is obviously wrong for so many reasons. So this is a guy who has opinions, and fine, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but to not their own set of facts here. And the asset underlying such claims is never the security itself. Just like oranges will never be securities. We all understand these in the XP community because we've been in the trenches for over two years at this point, and we get this. But this guy, I mean, kudos to him for all the success that he's found, and I mean that's impressive. But I don't know if that's why. Is he just now getting a bit lackadaisical about his research because he's spewing out complete and utter garbage to almost 1 million people? It's completely absurd. So, and then as far as the registration, look, if you're talking about registering a decentralized cryptocurrency, and I've talked about this and gone in depth as to why, it's literally impossible to register a decentralized cryptocurrency based on the reporting requirements. It's not possible. Now, if you have a centralized thing, you can treat it as though it's a stock, and then you can, in theory, and it has been done before, rare instances. If you're talking about if you have complete control over a cryptocurrency ecosystem utilizing distributed ledger technology, it has been done. I have talked about that on the channel. But then the question becomes, how is it that you could continue to report on it once it becomes decentralized and you're not even in charge of it? And this is where obviously there's a complete lack of guidance and policy from the SEC itself, and there's not sufficient congressional oversight to indicate who should be in charge of what government agency should be looking over this anyway. But if you're talking about registering a decentralized cryptocurrency, well, you can't do that, and you can't even know all the participants on the network. It's just quite literally impossible. And so anyway, Brad Garlinghouse responded to this, and he had a spicy response. Nothing too over the top, but it's very strongly worded, and I appreciated it. So here's what Brad Garlinghouse said in response. "Remind me when you learned securities law. This is embarrassing for you and hilariously wrong, as there is no framework to register digital assets in the US, but we're all used to you making controversial statements and trolling about things you know nothing about." Yeah, and that's certainly true, as I just highlighted something from January of 2021, where you're saying nonsense about XRP. And Brad is right. There is no framework for digital assets to be registered. So for the one or two, however many small number of entities that were able to successfully register a cryptocurrency with the SEC, that's without a framework for digital assets. They tried to shoehorn that technology into existing framework, hoping that the SEC won't sue them. In fact, one of the firms, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but after, I don't know if it was a year or two or three, whatever it was, they ended up saying, yeah, well, we decided that our cryptocurrency is now decentralized, that it no longer needs to be registered with the SEC, and the SEC shared no opinion on this. So if this firm thinks they're not going to get sued, my question is, why? Why would you think that the SEC wouldn't come after you at some point? Just because you shoehorn some technology into this old system that wasn't designed for digital assets, as pointed out here by Brad Garlinghouse? I'm not so confident. I'm just saying. Now, Jason did respond to Brad Garlinghouse and wrote, I learned securities law by investing in 350 startups, having a bunch go public, and by forming the largest angel syndicate in the world with 11,000 accredited investors. And so, look, again, and I mean this, all the credit in the world, he's found wild success. It doesn't mean that he knows everything about everything, though. And so I don't know if this is a thing where like ego's getting in the way and he's just done minimal research and he just has these strong opinions because, I mean, he's Jason Calacanis and he can just do, I don't know what it is. I can't get in his head, so I won't speculate on that. I'll admit I wonder, because it's hard to believe that that somebody could actually believe this nonsense that's following the case. But it is what it is. And then he wrote, I also read this, and he linked to the original complaint filed against Ripple December 22nd, 2020. Now, attorney Bill Morgan, member of the XRP community, noticed that and responded and wrote, it's a court case. Both sides have arguments. Reading the SEC's complaint and not Ripple's defense, or better still, each party's summary judgment motions, is hardly going to allow you to be fully informed and suggest you prejudged the issue for some reason only you know. Exactly, and so I'm of the same mindset. It's hard to believe that this guy's being intellectually honest. I don't know if it's ego. I can't get in his head. Probably only he knows the reason. I don't know that he would have told anyone even. But it is silly nonsense, so I got to call it out for what it is. That is what it is. Now, the good news is we're seeing tremendous support, the likes of which, we as XRP holders, I think it's fair to say, we haven't been defended very much by other respected and well-known people in the world of crypto. I think it's fair to state that. And so I appreciate that now. I think people have a greater understanding of the fact that the entire asset class is under attack. And if things don't go well for XRP and Ripple, that could be really bad if precedent is set from a legal perspective. What does that mean for every other cryptocurrency project out there? So Eric Voorhees, I'm sure many of you are well informed who he is. He's quite famous in the world of crypto. I'm a fan. I love the arguments that he makes. I've seen him in debates and all sorts of videos and stuff. Really sharp guy. He is the founder of cryptocurrency exchange Shapeshift. 659,000 followers, and he's pushing back against this garbage from Jason, and you'll love to see it. You didn't frequently see stuff like this in 2020. And so I'm not stating, I don't know Eric's full history on that. I haven't seen him say bad stuff about Ripple or XRP. So maybe he is one of the people that's been speaking out the whole time. But I'm just saying in a general sense, regardless, this is not something that I'm used to. So it's nice to see this. I've got a few examples for you, but let me share with you what Eric Voorhees wrote here in response to this nonsense. He said, if it had registered as a security, no exchanges would have been able to support it, and the project would have been dead. There is not a single crypto asset which A, registered as a security, and B, found any adoption/use/success whatsoever. In crypto, everything is highly adaptive and competitive. If you shackle your project to antiquated and friction-laden U.S. securities laws, it will be immediately replaced by a similar project in a different jurisdiction which doesn't shackle itself. And so, you could say, what's that mean, Eric? You're arguing that you might as well just break the law. Well, I'm not going to say that you should break the law, but I will just be a realist and acknowledge that in life, it's pretty common when there's new technology that you just start implementing it. I've seen this many times over. And then if regulators have a problem with it, then you just ask for forgiveness later. How many times have we seen that? With like those little scooters that get dropped all over cities? Unless you live out in the boonies somewhere, like you know what I'm talking about, at least in the United States. I don't know how prevalent they are in all jurisdictions around the world, but in the United States, there's these little scooters, and they've got technology to find out if they're stolen, like GPS tracking and stuff, so you can't really easily steal them. And they're just left, and you can use an app on your phone to ride them around. I'm sure pretty much everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? Well, people just started dropping those in cities, and like regulations be damned, just started littering the cities with them, and then you ask for forgiveness later. That's an example. Another example, with the adoption of Uber, which this guy invested in, with that and Lyft, there were jurisdictions where there were regulations having to do with taxis specifically. And then there was a question as well, you have to register in a specific way depending on what state you might be in order to be able to be a taxi service. So how are you coming in? You're trying to skirt the law. So there's stuff like that all the time. And I think that's the point that Eric Voorhees is getting at here. When it's not completely clear if you fall into a particular bucket, what do? So like out of an abundance of caution, you try and register. And then if it's centralized, what happens? Because I've already talked about that several minutes ago. Like what happens? And does it even actually protect you even if you find success? And there's only been a couple entities on the planet, so far as I'm aware, that have ever registered a cryptocurrency. And even then, it's like, are you sure that you don't have to keep reporting to the SEC? Are you sure any of that worked? It still doesn't make sense. So even if you do it, you're still as much of a target as if you didn't do it. Do you see what I'm saying? Register, don't register, you're still screwed. Because you don't know, because there's not regulatory clarity. So either way, I'm just like, eh. Then there was this from a guy named Jacob Frenick. Jacob is the a co-founder of Coinmetrics, and he wrote the following to Jason, because obviously Jason's correct. Jacob wrote, "It bears repeating over and over. The asset itself, XRP, is highly unlikely to be a security. Your job is literally investing. You should try actually educating yourself on securities laws." Yeah, and so small critique on that. I mean, he's right. I can tell that he's on our side on this. But more accurately, the asset itself is never the security. Not just that it's highly unlikely to be a security, it's the asset itself is never the security, quite literally. And he shared a thread from attorney John Deaton, so it's nice. He's getting facts from the man himself. Then there was also a guy named Mike Belsch. Mike Belsch is the CEO of BitGo, and he wrote the following to Jason: "Ignorant view. Go try to register a digital asset as a security before you make ridiculous statements like this." And so this is a pleasure to see. Again, I'm not saying there was no support at the beginning days of the SEC v. Ripple lawsuit, but there wasn't much. It was mostly just our community trying to get the word out, trying to get mainstream press to understand what was actually going on. All of us pushing back. And you love to see it. It's fantastic. So this guy's wrong, but especially with his massive following, you don't get to have 750,000 people following you and then say crap that obviously isn't true, and then I'm just going to be silent. Like that's not how this works. And then there's this. I'll be brief on this one. Ripple CTO calls XLM founder a crazy fool holding a live grenade. And this is pretty damn funny because it's actually not even true. Check this out. In a recent development in the ongoing rivalry between XRP blockchain and Stellar Lumens XLM, the Ripple Chief Technology Officer David Schwartz has taken a swipe at Stellar co-founder Jed McCaleb. In a tweet that caused quite a stir in the crypto community, Schwartz warned crypto enthusiasts to be wary of McCaleb, stating that the XLM co-founder walks around with a live grenade without realizing it. And so he's sharing a clip, and it's of this guy. Presumably it's staged, maybe it's not, I don't know. But this guy's messing around with a grenade, and he pulls the pin out, and then he starts freaking out. And so he jumps out of the passenger seat of this vehicle, and he's getting recorded. And you can't see if he ran with the grenade or if he dropped it. But presumably he dropped it because, and I'll just show you this screen, this is a freeze frame here, of allegedly the car. Now the video cuts and this is a still, so I don't even know if this is technically true. It's a thing on the internet, whatever. Take it with a grain of salt, or 2 or 3 or 11 billion, whatever you think is appropriate. But here's the exploded vehicle from allegedly the grenade. So if it's true, if that really happened, wow, that guy's a damn fool. But it's just a clip that is getting circulated on social media. That's it. Seen 5.1 million times. So David Schwartz retweeted that clip and wrote, "If at JedMcCaleb12 on Twitter," so that's the handle, at JedMcCaleb12 throws a pin at you, run. The crazy fool certainly doesn't realize he's holding a live grenade. So wait a minute, I told you that David Schwartz didn't even say what they asserted in the headline. What gives? You can see a tweet right here that would make you think perhaps that he did say that. Well, that's because at JedMcCaleb12 is not Jed McCaleb. At JedMcCaleb12 is a parody account of Jed McCaleb. And you've got crypto media incorrectly thinking, and still haven't corrected the damn story, thinking that that's the real Jed McCaleb. And so David Schwartz shared the article on Twitter and wrote, at Jed McCaleb 12 is not Jed McCaleb. And here you can see, here's Jed McCaleb, and it's clearly marked as a parody account. So David Schwartz was having a little bit of fun here. And so XRP Crypto Wolf responded and wrote, deep down, that's how you actually feel about Jed McCaleb, with a little laughy emoji. To which David Schwartz responded with the following. Do I say the things I want to say to the real Jed McCaleb, to an imposter, as a way of making it seem like a joke, even though I'm dead serious? Who knows? Do I really feel that way about the Jed McCaleb? Want to let the world know, but want plausible deniability? Who can say? It's right. I guess we'll never know. So anyway, I kind of got a kick out of that. And so why did this story exist? Well, because crypto media is run by a bunch of C students. That's the real reason right there. That's the true headline on this matter. But David Schwartz having a little bit of fun with it as a result here. So is what it is. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.